Good Lord, we're back. What's going on, everybody? It's your brother Bleak. Welcome to another installment of Scarecrow's Chamber. And today I would like to step back to the gaming realm. I would like to talk about a game that is one of my personal favorites. Arguably, probably, my top three favorite games of all time. It was a game that recently came out with their latest installment. I'm so glad that Yuzo Koshiro did what he could to bring it back. And if you don't recognize the name Yuzo, well, you're about to know now. Yuzo Koshiro, he was the head of a studio called Ancient. Well, it's called Ancient. Yeah, Ancient. And together, he and his team, they developed a game called Streets of Rage. Man, oh man, I love beat 'em ups. Growing up, man, taking it back to the Sega Genesis, man. Streets of Rage was a classic. Is a classic, man. I'm stumbling over my words here. I'm kind of salivating over the mic here about this series, man. I mean, this is just one of my favorite games of all time. Recently they just came out with Streets of Rage 4. Love it, absolutely love it. Bringing back memories and also new memories as well. Let's get into it, man. Streets of Rage, man. The very first Streets of Rage came out for the Sega Genesis. I believe it was in the early 90s. Don't know exactly the date. I believe it was like either 92, I think. Not exactly sure, but man, oh man, when I first came across this game for the Sega Genesis, man, like I was just blown away. Not only blown away with the gameplay, but with the music, man. I mean, Yuzo Koshiro, he was just ahead of his time when it came to like the sounds, man. And gamers, if you listen to the Streets of Rage games and you listen to the soundtracks of other games during that time period, nobody else was, their music in their games didn't sound like that. And he used these particular sounds, systems, and equipment and stuff like that. I'm not gonna get deep into it. I'm not really privy to the NPCs and all that stuff and all the different studio equipment. But and the crazy thing about it, he was inspired by because because Yuzo Koshiro, he's Japanese. So when he went to Los Angeles, he and somebody else, forget the guy's name. But anyway, they went to like nightclubs in Los Angeles, and they were inspired by the popular music and the nightclubs during the early '90s, and those were the sounds and the medleys that he would put into Streets of Rage. And it just when you hear the music, it just sticks with you. I mean, I still listen to it till this day. But let's get into the gameplay, man. I mean, if you don't know what a beat 'em up is, for if you're a non-gamer, beat 'em ups are pretty much just games that are based on it's like a side-scrolling type of game where you just pretty much just walk around. I mean, the title of the category is self-explanatory. Beat 'em up. It's either a single player or two players where you just walk around as a team and you're just fighting off the bad guys, progressing through stage based. You're just progressing through stages and just fighting your way through the bad guys until you get to the boss fights towards the end of the stages. Pretty simple concept of gaming. Beat 'em up, but it's just something that I can never really get enough of. I still love playing them to this day. And in the Streets of Rage series, the first one, basically the synopsis of the game was basically three characters. In the first one, you had Axel, Blaze, Adam, and basically they were pretty much fallouts. They used to work for the police department. I believe Adam still did, but Axel and Blaze, they kind of like had like a fallout with the police, but they still kind of held the police, but more of a type of freelance, like vigilante style. They really didn't work with the police, but they kind of did. I mean, Adam, I know, definitely was. And they pretty much took on, the villain of the game was a guy named Mr. X, and he was a head of this crime syndicate in the city. And basically, like I said, it's very very simple. It's an older game, so the stories weren't that deep. It was basically just you're fighting your way through this crime syndicate, trying to stop Mr. X and all of his goons and his mains and stuff like that. It's pretty simple. And Axel, his fighting style was kind of like I guess you say kind of like kickboxing, and it was a combination of hard punches, strike, hard punches, and box with a little bit of boxing and some kicking and grappling, stuff like that. Blaze, who was actually my favorite character, she was the only female character in the game, but her style was kind of based on more like a kind of like kung fu type of style mixed with judo. She was really really unique. I've never really imagined those type of combinations, but it was a lovely combination. Of course, like in fighting games, the female characters are always very graceful. They have these graceful styles and stuff like that. Not really hard techniques a lot. They're mostly dish out the soft techniques and stuff like that. But Blaze, it was very very fun playing with her, and I love her in the latest installment. It's very very fun. And Adam, who surprisingly, he's, I guess you could say, he's the brother of the game. He was a man of color, and he was I guess you could say he was kind of like it was a little bit of similar to Axel, but he had more of a direct style. Just hard hitting. Just straight to the grill, man. It was just no questions asked, man. Just a hard style. And I guess you could say it was kind of like kickboxing as well, but I would probably throw in a little bit of probably like a combination of kickboxing with a little bit of because he dished out some kicking techniques as well. So probably a little bit of karate, I guess you could say. It's hard to tell with the older games, but yeah, that was the first game. And the second game, the second one, that's still my favorite one of all of them. I mean, you have 4 of them total, but the second one, I think they outdid themselves with the second one. I mean, that was my favorite one. I mean, that was the one that my cousin and I played all the time. When we were outside shooting ball all day, and we would come back and play games at night. And this was back in the early '90s. Now, when they had the the old. And like I said, if you're old enough, you remember, in the early '90s they had tube TVs. This is the cathode TVs, the box TVs that still had the knobs on them. And you had the antenna in the background, and in order to get better reception, we had to put aluminum foil on the antennas. If you're old enough to remember that, in the '90s, early '90s, we still had televisions from the late '70s throughout the '80s and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So if you're old enough to remember that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm gonna tell you something right now. Those TVs back then had, you can drop that TV flat on its face countless times. You could not break that glass. That glass was just solid. Even if you hit it with bullets, man, I think the bullets would just bounce off. Because the funny thing about it, my cousin and I, we would always try to beat the second game on the hardest level. We did it once. And we never were able to do it again, if memory serves me, but we could never do it again. And the funny thing about my cousin, he would get so pissed off when we would, run out of, continues, and he would always take the Sega controller and just chuck it at the screen as hard as he could, man. It was hilarious. I mean, I felt this pain because I was pissed off too, but I didn't really, take it to that point. But he would do it every single time, man. But then after a while, it just became kind of a routine thing, and then he would just do it, and we would always get a good chuckle out of it. In the beginning, he didn't laugh. He was genuinely mad about it. But then later on, we just used to have a chuckle about it. For Streets of Rage 2, they added a new character. 2 new characters, excuse me. Because the Adam character, he was captured, and he wasn't available to play in the second game. So they added two new characters: Skate, who was probably the most unique character in the whole series. Skate was Adam's little brother, Skate Hunter, and what was unique about him, the way he fought, it was just a straight street freestyle. But what was unique about it, he actually fought in skates. He fought in rollerblades. So, and he was like a teenage character, and just the way he fought, it was just straight freestyle, man. So so he's really a crowd a favorite. He really is a favorite and I don't blame people for loving him. He's just a unique character. He's some teenage kid fighting in rollerblades, man. Very, very unique. And he had this one move that my cousin and I, we used to call the headache, where he would actually get on the person's shoulders and just beat him in the head and stuff like that. So it was crazy playing with Skate. And then the other character was a wrestler style character, Max. Straight power, and just more power, man. Straight wrestling, man. Just, you get the occasional chops, but another of that, getting your ass slammed back and forth, thrown into the ground, thrown into the dirt, man. Max was just straight powerhouse. I love playing with Max, man, and I'm glad that they added him back on the latest installment. But the second game, man, it just, like I said, the music was great in the first game, but I just think the second game, it took it to another level. It was so much fun. I mean, that's still my favorite one in the series. It's just the most memorable one. I spend time playing that one the most. And pretty much the premise, same thing. You're going after Mr. X, trying to fight through the crime syndicate. And it goes through the third game, same thing. Third game, I would say, was probably the weakest out of the first three, at least in my opinion. It was just something about the third one. Yeah, they kind of added a little bit more moves, like the way you can fight with the weapons and stuff like that. They added a little bit more, but it kind of lost that kind of the magic that the second one had, at least to me. They kind of speeded up the game a little bit. I mean, yeah, they added a new feature, because like in the second one, Skate was the only character who could run, like dash or run. And then on the third game, all of the characters were able to do it. On the third game, they added another character. They got rid of Max, and then they replaced Max with another character called Dr. Zan, who was like a cyborg character, pretty unique character, really unique cyborg guy. And he had these kind of cybernetic type of style moves where he can use electric type attacks, and he can take weapons and turn them into like energy and repel them and stuff like that. He's pretty cool character. When you playing with him, power up all day. And that was also a unique thing about the game. And I guess you could say the first one too. But in the second one, the characters, they kind of, I guess you could say, they kind of developed like their own. They had like an identity. When you would do certain moves, the way they sound and stuff like that, they actually yelled out type of attacks and stuff. And probably the most famous move in the game was by Axel. Axel was he's like the face of the franchise, and he had this this uppercut move that he would do, and when you would do it, he would say, "Grandpa." But back then, we really kind of didn't understand it, and what he was saying. But I used to think it was a bare knuckle. And ironically enough, in the Japanese version, that's what the game was called. It was called Bare Knuckle. In America, it was called Streets of Rage. And and the funny thing, my cousin, he used to say gangsta ball, like gangsta ball. That's what he used to say. And it was man, just talking about it just brings back so many memories, man. So many memories, man. When you really had no responsibility. I mean, you're just a kid. The only thing you do is just go to school and just have fun, essentially. People weren't working back then. We were kids, so it just shooting, like going to school, but in the weekends and in the summertime, playing ball and playing games, man. That's all we were doing. So much fun. And Streets of Rage, it was just a game that never left. And then after the third game, we didn't see another Streets of Rage until what? I mean, the fourth one came out like a year and a half ago or something. It wasn't that like it was like just a 20-year period where we didn't get any more. And the funny thing, it was two games in particular that every time I would go to a GameStop, I would just and the games didn't even exist, but I would always just drive the clerks crazy when I would go in there. I'm like, hey man, you got Streets of Rage 4, Power Stone 3. I would do that every time because those are the two main games that I wanted, and I got one of them. Like we finally got Streets of Rage 4, but I would do it all the time, man. Like, hey man, well, Streets of Rage 4, I'm looking for it. You got it in stock. I used to do it all the time, and I just cannot believe we finally got a fourth one, man. But props to Yuzo Koshiro, man. Because the crazy thing, man, Sega Sega was the company that Ancient was working with. Sega was pretty much was like the publisher, stuff like that, and they were the one that was making all the deadlines. So Ancient was working with them to put out the game. So Ancient was doing all the development work and all the sound editing and the music and stuff like that, and then they would give it to Sega, and then Sega would distribute and stuff like that. And in the fall of 1993, I believe it's the fall of 1993. That's when the final game bill was signed off, and then after that, the distribution process started. And I believe in early 1994, 4. That's when the game started to be distributed in the stores and stuff. Man. It was just a monumental, instrumental time to be alive, man. At least for me as a gamer, man. It just you don't know, man. It was so many great games coming out. Like that's one thing I loved about gaming back then, man. You didn't have to worry about all this DLC and microtransactions and games coming out, 40% finished and stuff like that. That's my gripe with the gaming industry nowadays, man. It's just, I understand that games cost 10 times more than what they cost back then, but it's a lot of the heart that's missing in games nowadays. Don't get me wrong, you still got a lot of great studios out there. They're not exactly AAA studios, but you can see the effort, you can see the heart, you can see, the give a damn attitude, when you see some of these games, So I always try to, like I said, as a matter of fact, I'm, going to get into playing, some games that are developed by, indie type of studios, independent type of studios that are not as big, but I like to, play them because, like I said, there's a lot of great games out there. But just that time, man, during the 90s and the early 2000s, there was so much heart put into games. You could not put out incomplete games because back then you had to make sure that the final product was complete. Because once it's on the shelf, it's not like you can do updates and patches like how we can do it today, because everything is connected through the web now. But back then, man, they had to make sure everything was done and complete. You really didn't see bugs and glitches and stuff in games back then like you do today, and that's just the gripe that I have, man. But like I said, it's not all studios that do this, but it's a great deal of them that do. And luckily for me, Streets of Rage 4 did not do that. We got a complete game. They did add some DLC for it. I damn sure was going to get it, and it was a reasonable price. Didn't have to break my back for it, but I was going to do it anyway because this is a game that I haven't seen in like 20 years, so I was waiting for it. And I'm just so glad we got one. And just been having fun playing that. And, Streets of Rage 4, you pretty much got all the characters back. And we got two new characters on the fourth one. We have a character named Cherry. Was it Cherry? Yeah, Cherry. Who's basically Adam's daughter and Skate's niece. And we have another character by, I forget the big dude's name, because I haven't actually played the fourth one in a while. I've been playing other games. It'll come to me, but if not, we got another big guy. I can't believe I forgot his name. But he's kind of like it's crazy, he's like a cyborg / I guess you could say powerhouse. Like he's like a Max and a Dr. Zan in one. And the crazy thing about it, he was working with Dr. Zan. Dr. Zan gave him like these type of cybernetic, you know, jacks from Mortal Kombat, cybernetic arm enhancers, stuff like that, where he is just this powerhouse type character, but he's pretty cool. I cannot believe I forgot his name. This is a disgrace. But yeah, man, Streets of Rage 4 is. I guess you can. I could say it's. I guess you could say it's the standard now in terms of all of the games put into one. And actually, now that I think of it, they did add more characters too. Like there was some characters that you fought in the story, but then they became playable characters later on. And Shiva, who was the bad guy that you fought in the second game, Mr. X's henchman. He was a playable character in the third game. He's kind of like this, straight, Shaolin type of kung fu type of character. I mean, he was always a great character. Just all offense and speed and stuff like that. It was pretty cool, pretty cool. Oh, Floyd, that's the big guy's name. Floyd. His name was Floyd. That's what his name was. Floyd. Floyd's a good character. And they had another character named Estelle. Streets of Rage 4 that you fought her. She was kind of like this police type of swole chick, like a police type of character, and she's pretty cool too. She reminds me of like a I don't know, type of like a Sonya Blade type of character, I guess, in the game or something. I don't know, but she's kind of like this police cop that you fight in the game. But she became a playable character later on. But man, oh man, like if you have not heard of this game, you can appreciate, a good game, just solid games that won't tear your pockets up. And Streets of Rage is the game for you, man. I'm telling you, man. I cannot praise this game enough. I really, really can't. And also in the game, they had these moves. In the first game, because they were working with the police in the first game, they had these moves called desperation moves. And this is kind of like a thing that's consistent in all beat 'em up games. If you are surrounded by too many enemies, you will use the desperation move. And the desperation move is pretty much just a clear out move where you just clear everybody out around you. Kind of like a little special maneuver that all the characters had. In the second game, they just called the cops, and the cops would just like shoot rockets and stuff to clear everybody out. It was pretty funny. But in the second game, they added the blitz moves where you tap forward, and you hit the attack button, and then they had like these little moves like the Grand Opera move that I was talking about. Moves like that, you would dish out, hidden attacks. But on the Genesis, you only had three, buttons. You had the A, B, C. When you press the A button, those were the desperation moves and stuff like that. And what I like about what the fourth game did, the fourth game added, juggling. And if you don't know what juggling is in fighting games, juggling is pretty much when you knock the character airborne. They're lifted off the ground, but you continue to add damage on to keep them in the air. I guess you could say, I would say the game that pretty much made juggling an art, I guess you could say, is the Tekken games. Well, the Tekken games now, Tekken games back in the day were more kind of grounded and more of a grounded style. It wasn't just about bouncing your character up and down the ground and stuff like that. That's what the later Tekkens end up doing. But Streets of Rage kind of added that, and you can play with your buddies and stuff like that, and just add on loads and loads of damage, man. It was really, really fun. Me and my boys, we got into that, have fun with it, and I need to get back on it. And because I'm with the DLC, they added the mode. It's kind of like an arena type fight mode where you pretty much like a survival mode. You just keep fighting and fighting and fighting until you survive. It's like a gauntlet type of mode. Really, really fun. Really, really cool. Put a lot of time in that. And with Streets of Rage 4, what they did, they allow you to level up. And when you level up, you unlock new moves. You unlock different blitz moves, which is pretty cool. So that keeps you kind of going. That adds long legs to the game. It increases the replay value. Keeps you, and that's the number one important thing. Besides the gameplay, the second important thing about gaming is how many times will you come back and play. what's gonna keep you there. A lot of games, there are games that are just single player adventure only, and once you complete the story, there's nothing else to do. Because it's heavy on story. But you have games that also they have a story, but they also have side modes that you can come back to and keep on playing. And also, when it comes to fixed rewards, and what I mean by fixed rewards, do you unlock things as you're progressing through the game and stuff like that. But Streets of Rage 4 did add that. They added more blitz moves that you can unlock, so you can keep on playing through. You don't always have to play, just the story, the single player story. You can just go to that DLC mode and just do the little gauntlet and upgrade your characters and unlock the moves and stuff like that. So that was a great addition, and I'm proud that they did that. And given the fact that it's a new game, you have new music, but you also have the option to switch back to the retro, and you can hear some of the classic themes. Even though I wish that they would let us pick the stages that we pick the tracks that we want and assign them to the different stages that we want. I wish that we got that feature, but at least we can switch to the retro, the classics that we all know and love, unless who's ever a fan of this franchise. And just earlier today, I was bumping the music on my phone. I have a lot of Streets of Rage music on my phone, and I listen to it all the time. And like I said, and that's the thing about Streets of Rage. The music is also a big component, as well as the gameplay. And you can't say that about a lot of games, but Streets of Rage is a game where you cannot ignore the music. You just can't, because it's so unique. It's so different, especially for a game that came out during its time. It came out in the early 90s for the Sega Genesis. There was a lot of 16-bit sounds and stuff like that, but when you heard Streets of Rage, it didn't sound like 16-bit that much. It sounded like something you would hear on the radio. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was a 16-bit or 12-bit. I don't know. I don't want to confuse people. But yeah, it just sounded like just everyday. But like I said, Yuzo Koshiro, he was influenced by the club music, the club sound that he heard in the 90s, and that's what he incorporated into the game. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It just sounds like, straight club music, man. Like just the popular sounds of that time. But it's just amazing, man, like what you can do when you just have an imagination, and you just allow your imagination just to run wild and come up with all these great ideas and stuff like that. That's why I love art so much, man. It's no limit to what you can do. And because of the brilliant minds of the people who worked at Ancient, we got one of the greatest games, at least in my opinion, one of the greatest video game franchises that's ever been made. But I'm getting ready to close up here, man. Streets of Rage, man. If you don't know, now you know. And you know the rest. But alright, y'all, man. This is your brother Bleak. This is Scarecrow's Chamber. Stay safe out there. I'll see you next time. Peace.